Hey everyone, it's Classic DM. We want to give you an update on our one shot. It's called the Indigo Oasis, and what this video is going to do is going to go through the kind of behind the scenes look at what the ideas are, the storyline, the narrative, some of the graphics we'll be able to get together with some people in the digital industry, and some of the key characters and some of the ideas that we're putting together for this one. And I'm hoping to get this thing written up and out in PDF form to everyone who's a subscriber of the channel and all that kind of business. Maybe next week, at the worst case, maybe the week after. Real life work is really, really heavy right now. Let's go ahead and dig into this because a lot of really cool, fun ideas in here, and I hope you'll have a lot of fun with it. I'm really trying to approach this from a different angle. I'm trying to do something very different than your run-of-the-mill Pathfinder kind of one-shot adventure. This one's probably about, I would say, two to 3 to 4 hours at most, and hadn't been play tested because I hadn't quite got it finished written up yet. But let's just go into the ideas behind it. I really wanted this one to capture the theme of a desert area, whether you're going to use the Golden Road in the Pathfinder Lost Omens world, or whatever you want to use, whether you want to use the Sea of Dust and Greyhawk, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what game you use, actually. The thing that's going to be very different is that this one shot will have stat blocks and information and checks and stuff oriented around second edition. So, the whole idea of Turegs, and they use a lot of indigo dye, and actually even say that some of the dye will stain their skin. You have a lot of dramatic imagery from National Geographic. You have a lot of historical imagery, like the two guys in gray and white. That's from like 1917. You have historical imagery from Osprey from Wargaming to show stuff of the Middle Eastern kind of flair. That's not necessarily North Africa, but we only captured that like endless dunes kind of vibe. And everyone knows that any kind of caravans crossing across North Africa or endless dunes is very critical that you travel at certain times of the day and that you can make it to the next oasis. So the whole idea of having an oasis is very timeless. And if you're an old school D&D player, you're going to probably appreciate that because, this series here, which was done probably in 1983, 84, by Tracy and Laura Hickman. They were the authors that also went on to write Dragonlance a year or two later. This series of modules here is considered like the number 6 of all time for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, which is the Desert of Desolation series. And they were released originally, these level characters of 5 through 7, 6 to 8, and 7 to 9. Back in those days, it took a long time to level characters up. So the first one called Pharaoh, which is on the far left here, is completely embracing Egyptian mythology. The Oasis of the White Palm has a genie and all kinds of things like that. And the Lost Tomb of Martek is this incredible, Indiana Jones style puzzle tomb to go and visit. If you've never played these old adventures, they're definitely worth getting just to even read them and look at them because the approach by this module design was very fun because it had really strong cohesive theme. Now, not to take anything away from Queen the Demon Web Pits or anything like that, but if you want to get your fix for the very first kind of stab in the role-playing game era of a desert campaign, if you're not playing something in Traveler, which had done a number of things before this, these are really great. So I wanted to kind of pull from nostalgia here, but I didn't want to copy this stuff. The idea of the desert theme and genies and pharaohs, that's all cool, but I wanted to put in something more intimate, more that involved music, that involved a really mystical location, that involved memories from the past, evil from the future, so a little time travel kind of a vibe. So from that, I looked at the old Desert Desolation stuff that I still have copies of actually, and it's just a big, massive human story with a bunch of tombs and things like that, and that's really huge and epic. We're looking for a one shot. A one shot's going to be like get your friends together, get the pre-generated characters. Here's this cool theme. Go play it in a day, and when you're done with it, you're turned loose. You can go right back to your previous campaign, or you can go somewhere brand new, or if the DM wants to, or the game master wants to, you can extend the story. So I really want it to be kind of a one-off type of an idea that you can plug and play anywhere. In fact, you could even change the setting to another setting and use it in a boreal forest if you wanted to, or even use it in the Arctic. But it's pretty much anchored around this Oasis theme and some structures that are there. So let's, another element to me that's always struck out from my childhood, because this is one really big thing for me, is the whole Conan Barbarian Savage Sword series, the Sword of Skelos. You probably heard me mention it 1,000 times. You're like, why does he keep talking about this thing? This was a storyline that was done on one of the novels that was written by Andrew J. Offutt in 1979. This is like right around the time AD&D first comes out. And the Savage Sword of Conan with Roy Thomas and John Buscema, who's probably one of the greatest comic book inkers ever from that era. They did a 3-episode spread over the same kind of story. And it was all, going after this magical sword of Skelos that could be controlled by someone who had a little necklace around their neck that had a little miniature version of it. So it was all, if you want to see the pulp drama of that kind of campaign, lots of fighting, hacking, and slashing, death amongst the dunes, this is a really great one for that kind of player. So with the Desert Desolation series, you have this really mystical, totally Egyptian, Libyan kind of vibe going on. Just everything you would expect to see in Tutankhamun with undead and all kinds of business. With the Conan stuff, you're getting a lot of hack and slash and fighting and single heroism. So for this story, I sat down and said, well, I want to blend a lot of these ideas together, but I want to make this thing anchored on an oasis, one location. And one thing that's really important is for it to work as a plug and play thing, we need to have a situation where, let's say your party is traveling across the desert, which is going to take a week, right? You can go from point A to point B. You just pick a place in the world of Lost Omens, say you're going to go from here, you're going to go from here. The best way to go is between this uncharted desert dunes. So you're going to need to join up with a caravan. And the caravan's going to have to be a bunch of fellows that know how to do this stuff, kind of Tuaregs if you think of that kind of business. And that they aren't really major players in the story. They're just to facilitate the basic premise that you're going somewhere. In the Black Ship of the Sunless, you're traveling by boat. In this one, you're traveling from point A to point B across the desert. Nothing out of the ordinary, no anticipated wars or conflicts, no ancient tombs between here and there. There's nothing considered to be out of the ordinary for this type of a situation. It's just a standard trip from point A to point B. Now, along the way, a really bad sandstorm kicks up and everyone has to hunker down. And because the sandstorm lasts for so many days, everyone starts to run out of water. So the caravan's like, forget this, we're going to go back. But you're trying to get to your destination. So the situation will arise where the players need to get to another destination. The caravan's like, we're not going to go. We're going to turn around and go back. We don't care. And so the conflict comes to, do the players continue onward with the adventure, or do they go with the caravan and go back to the town? Now, to push the players forward, the caravan can mention that there is the Indigo Oasis, but no one goes there. And that's going to pique the player's interest. So the indigo is the color of the dye that's used in all the Tuaregs' clothing, like in this picture, this little girl you see here, and even the guy's thing wrapped around his neck. I don't know why the guy in the background has this swimming pool aqua color. Maybe he's like a Seattle Seahawks fan or something. So the idea is the caravan, these people who know the desert really, really well, that know the terrain really well, they have this location they'd mentioned to you, but they're like, but we're not going there, dude. Like, no way. It's haunted. It's bad spirits are there. It's, and they say, well, you can ask, the players can ask the game master all about it, and I'll provide all the background information about what the rumors are and the story behind this Indigo Oasis, which is something along the lines of, there was once a magnificent, opulent estate that was there, but it was attacked in a family battle. There was a terrible thing that happened maybe 500 years ago and everyone was killed, and the oasis is considered haunted, that the spirits of the family that was there just live forever, and the war continues back and forth every night, and any man who's ever gone to the oasis to drink of the water there dies. So that's your typical kind of like, open the tomb of Tutankhamun, you die, right? So this whole mysticism, curse kind of vibe is obviously going to intrigue your players. Oh shit, let's go check that out, man, that sounds awesome, right? So when the players are going to head towards this location, they can tell you where it is by pointing, it's that way, but it's 2 days ride that way, but we're not going there. So as the players start to head that direction, they just keep going and going and going, never seem to get anywhere. So it's kind of like, well, these guys told us this was a 2 days ride, but after like the 4th and 5th and 6th day, you're not getting any closer, and you're further out in the middle of the desert, and you're kind of like, wait a minute, what's going on here? We're just going in circles. Are we going in circles? Are we still going west? You can travel at night, you can travel at day. So it gets to a situation where it kind of feels like we're lost in the desert, and there's nothing that's going to happen to get us out of this. So that's a situation where players are kind of desperate for some kind of solution. You're running out of water. Now, we all know there's magical means to generate water, but the theming and the feeling should have this kind of feeling of a human theme of, we're running out of water. We need to find this oasis. We were told it was this way. Did the caravan guy lie to us? Is this all just a big trick? They just want to get rid of us because they don't want us to come back with them and take their water because they were already running low in the first place from the sandstorms. So eventually, at one point at night, the players decide to ride at night or during the day, and they see in the distance burning torches and some palm trees that there's some kind of oasis up ahead. So that's where you kind of get to some ideas like this. So I sketched out some really rough stuff of what would be an interesting way to make an oasis where like there was an opulent, beautiful, magnificent estate built right next to it. But now it's completely in ruins. You just have a few walls, a number of columns are still standing, maybe some trellises are still there, but the plants have taken over, but you can tell it was once beautiful, magnificent gardens. If you have a beautiful garden with hibiscuses and roses and flowers everywhere, and you turn it loose and you don't do anything with it for 300 years, those flowers aren't usually going to die. They're just going to start growing wildly. However, they're pollinated by bees and hummingbirds and things like that. So you want to capture that kind of like oasis and beautiful state left to its own devices is just flourishing. So from the plant perspective and the water perspective, this location is absolutely fantastic. Now, one thing about this place that's very different is that it is spring fed. Now, most oases, or oasis is how you say it, nothing to do with the terrible band, is always like a body of water that's either fed by a spring underneath the ground or a place that water is being held from rainfall. So in this situation, you want to do something different. We actually want to have a well that's actually tapped into a spring really far down below where there's some caves or something, and water is just bubbling clear, 70-degree cool, crystal clear, like Wasissa Springs in Florida, or Silver Springs in Florida. Just water's just coming up. It has this indigo kind of color to it. It's just really, really blue, which a lot of times when you see in the Mediterranean, the color of the water is very different than the color like in the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic on the Pacific side, and it's all because of the plankton and the things that's in the water and how things reflect. So in this situation, you really want to have this kind of indigo azure theme for the water as well. So really crystal clear blue water with all these limestone structures around it, surrounding it. So, and there's been this canal that's been built. It's like a 10-foot deep canal, and the water runs from the well, this spring-fed well, as you can see in this diagram right here. I'm going to put my mouse cursor here. From this well, which is here, runs down this man-made created canal down to this massive oasis, and then there's like an overflow drain at the top, which you may see if you've ever seen a subdivision that has like a man-made lake. They have an overflow drain to keep it from getting too high, where the water circulates back down into the underground caverns that are below. Now, even though I mentioned underground caverns, the whole adventure takes place on the ground plane. So this spring-fed oasis at this ruins, which used to be this opulent estate, is this historical site that's shunned by locals. No one goes here. Now, when you get here, it's like, wow, this is like a vacation resort, except for the fact that the buildings are in complete disarray. Everything's crumbling like you'd see in ancient Greek ruins and stuff like that. So it's this former estate of a noble sorcerer. Now, we always know, we can't just say a noble lord or a noble king or a noble general. It has to be a sorcerer, right? Because if it's not a sorcerer, it doesn't have the connotations of, was he dabbling in something bad? Is he doing some Thulsa Doom action over here? So by having the former state of the sorcerer and this beauty and serene and everything's gone and decayed now, it kind of gives you this hint of like, wow, what's going on? Is something bad going to happen here? And players want something bad to happen. They can't wait for something cool and bad to happen. So some of the rough sketches we decided to do here, and some of that's inspired by some of the digital work done in Unreal Engine 4 by someone from ArtStation who's been very cool to help collaborate with this kind of stuff, and I want to give you full credit for him, and I got credit for his stuff in here as well, which you'll see is magnificent for a course he teaches over in Europe. So on the right-hand side here, we have like these two houses, two beautiful outhouses in a way, not the actual main estate, where there's all there is these are the only structures really left standing, where there's a series of columns, 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, used to be trellises and hanging gardens. So this outside area is the beautiful garden and sitting area that's right adjacent to the little spring-fed canal that then dumps down into the oasis down here below. You can see down this below. So I just drew some quick little dirty, these are for me. They weren't really designed to be presentation sketches. So now the one thing we want to do here is once the players arrive at this destination, there is a number of braziers and torches burning, and they actually bump into this little girl. And this little girl is sitting there by the fire, relaxing happily and singing a song. And around her is all these beautiful silk pillows, and there's this big table with opulent dishes of food and wine and all these fruits. It's like, what the devil? Like nothing a Rakshasa might do, but we're not doing that. So one of the little outbuildings, which listen right here, is just completely filled with this awesome campsite. I mean, everything you could ever think of that would be magical and mystical and have this sense of not pottery barn, but something that has this really beautiful richness to it. Like there's silks and there's little lanterns and there's all kinds of little things in there. It's very adult, but at the same time, it has all this beautiful food and this huge, magnificent spread. So when the players get here and they meet this little girl, she just acts normal. She's like, hi. She said, no mom, no dad. There's no one around her. She doesn't have a camel. There's just all this magnificent layout. And she's like very welcoming and very friendly. Now, there'll be details in the module that describe what kind of interactions you can have with the little girl. And I'll put out her details and her actual history and all the kind of stuff so the game master knows how to play it. From the player's perspective, it's like, this is kind of weird. We have this at nighttime, right? Or it becomes night very shortly after that. She's at this opulent campsite. She's alone. She's completely there alone, and she keeps trying to badger you to come do things. Why don't you have some food? Why don't you do this? You guys look tired. And she can tell you about the history of the spring and her father's estate and her mother's estate, and she can't wait for them to come back, but they're not here right now. And it's just her, and she's just playing here, and hopefully her dog's going to come back soon. She misses her dog. So these little childlike Disney themes are intended to make the players not feel like Murder Hobo Town, but I have elements in place for the little girl because she's not actually a living girl. She's a ghost that prevent the players from just flat out killing the little girl straight away, right? So one thing that happens is over the players get a chance to interview and talk to the girl and get some food, and everything's okay. No one gets poisoned, no one passes out or anything weird, terrible like that. And she's very excited because you know it's like when you have an 8, 10-year-old girl, like, let's go over here, let's go see the zebras. You want to have that kind of vibe going on. In this case, she wants everyone to grab, there's cases, everyone get a case and bring it here to the campfire because we're going to do a song. And you're like, okay. So she goes and sits down, and she sits down. She's very adamant about everyone coming and doing a song. So each player has these beautiful, magnificent trunks, and you open a trunk, and each player has an individual instrument, a very classic instrument, whether it's like an oboe or a fiddle or a harp or a hand drum. And we'll pick a number of instruments that you see in like Lorena McKennett's music. Now, I'm a huge Black Sabbath, Dokken, Yngwie Malmsteen, George Lynch, KXM kind of a guy. Like I like Iron Maiden stuff. But, you know, for the traditional folk style music, the one song by Lorena McKennett called Marco Polo, which is from the Book of Secrets album, is really, really interesting and totally appropriate for this kind of a theme. Now, you may not like that kind of music. That's fine. Everyone likes different kinds of music. You want your country, western, or your rap music, whatever. You go for it, dude. I don't care. So, or you want your corn, it doesn't matter to me. Ray Luzier is a great drummer. So, the reason why I mentioned that is if you ever take a few minutes to look on YouTube, type in Marco Polo and Lorena McKennett and listen to the song for maybe like a minute and a half. Because the reason I'd want you to do that is to get an idea of what kind of instruments we're talking about. We're not talking about a big lute, a very Middle Ages, and a big song for the wood flute from freaking Jethro Tull. These are going to be Middle Eastern, North Africa style instruments. So once the players grab an instrument, some players are going to be very awkward. They're going to be like, oh, I don't know how to play this. But for some reason, when you hold the instrument in your hand, the little girl can talk to you. Oh, just hold it like this and do this. And as soon as you start using it, you immediately start playing it perfectly, which is very strange, right? And what happens is as you start to play the instrument, you start playing a part in a song that's already in synchronization that she's playing and leading. And she tries to get everyone to start playing the song. All Pumps has to do is sit down right next to her around the campfire, which is this area we're going to see right here. Let me see if I can circle this here. If you can see this one picture here, I've got highlighted in blue, right where the middle of the cursor. This is the area where the song playing thing is going to happen. So you got these trickling, beautiful waters are coming by, and you start playing these songs, and she's like, and there's no real reason to explain why. It's just, we got to play the song. We have to play the song. Once she starts playing the song, what happens around you is you start seeing images of what this place used to be like. And you see this magnificent estate was once on the edge of a fantastic city, a big fortress city. All the gardens were big. There was people coming and going, everything. Everything was very wealthy. There was all kinds of silks strung between all the different parts of the campsite kind of thing, between the different buildings. And you start to see the world through the past, but the area around the campfire is the only light source. So as the players are playing the song, they start to see this beautiful place in the past, and as the song changes tempo to different sections, you start seeing it being attacked and flaming arrows coming by, and then you see this massive siege, and then before you know it, you're seeing these men and soldiers come rushing up onto the scene. And when that gets happening, she says, don't stop playing, or they'll get us. So the little girl is like, we have to find my mother, we have to find my dog. So the girl, for some reason, is playing the song to reach out and connect to her mother and her missing dog from the past and to find her father, and she needs your help to do it. But along the way, if you stop playing the song, these soldiers that are coming and ransacking the place and burning things to the ground and killing servants and killing children, if you stop playing the songs, they will actually be able to tell that you're there and start attacking you. So we're going to look at some more details here in the slideshow that explains that to you. So this gives players a chance who want to play along with the girl can do this, but players that don't want to do that, when I'll go pull my sword out and start rushing, why going to you want to start doing that? Go ahead, because there will be waves and waves of enemies to defeat, and while players are defeating the enemies, they feel like they're defending the location where the girl keeps playing. And she'll try to maintain the song as best she can. The more people that help her play the song, the less enemies you have to fight. So that allows players to dictate what they want to do. Do they want to play the song until it comes to fruition, or do they want to play the song and jump up and start defending because, oh, kill something, oh my goodness, we can't let this happen. So basically what ends up happening over a period of time where the players have fought a bunch of enemies or fought defeated waves, or everyone can participate in playing the song, the evil uncle who ransacked and was jealous of his brother that killed everyone and killed her mother and killed her dog and her father and maybe even her, which will be revealed later, kind of a Sixth Sense kind of a vibe. He comes on the scene with his soldiers, and the players actually do have to fight because the song suddenly stops. So the song suddenly stops of what's going on, and now you have to defend the little girl from what's happening. Let's look at some more details here. So we start talking about attackers. We're looking at things like these guys on the right, which is El Cid bin Yusef's Black Guard from Hail Caesar, which is a historical war game. This is the wrong time period, but it's this kind of look. So you're going to have these soldiers wearing black with these spears, these big shields, this kind of stuff going on. On the left-hand side, you might have a commander and the scale mail and his horse riding up. So these are going to be skeletal attackers. So we're going to use skeletons from the bestiary as the basic stat blocks, and we'll be able to adjust those up and down based on what level your players are. But the primary idea is if you're fighting characters and enemies in swarms and groups that you can relatively easily defeat, but still are difficult and challenging because they're all coming for you. Now, the soldiers are never coming for the girl. It's like they only ever notice the player. So we're going to have the look and feel of skeletal type soldiers looking like this. So imagine these outfits with like skeletal dudes underneath it. Not Sinbad, but that kind of a vibe, right? So from there, once they've defeated everything, the players ultimately defeat the evil uncle, right? This is a skeletal warlord. And once they defeat the evil uncle, the whole idea is then the little girl's mother appears. And on the right-hand side, this is our idea for the antagonist. This is a Tuareg from 1917. You can see the outfits of the guys at the train station. So the evil uncle is this guy with the black and the white and the red scarf over his head and the sword. And the little girl kind of looks like this picture over here. We just named her Jana. We'll come up with some other name later. And then the mother then, once the uncle has been defeated, then the mother comes up and hugs the little girl, and with her is the dog. So the little girl and the mother are reunited, but the father's not there. So the whole idea is that by the time that whole thing has happened, then the little girl tells everyone, thank you so much for helping me find my mother again. The mother sees the players and thanks them for protecting their little girl, and then everything just starts to fade away. And everything, all the elements around you, everything that seemed to be happening, all the skeletons, everything in the whole area, you have this like wispy spirit kind of thing going on where these have now transitioned to wherever they were, to they're dead, and then I moved on from this world. So Jana was trapped in this world, and what you did is help release her to be reunited with her mother by defeating the evil antagonist, the evil uncle. So the whole idea is you kind of set her free, right? So, but along the way, it felt like the whole thing was absolutely 100% real. Now let's look at some cool graphics and we'll wrap this stuff up. So there's a digital artist named Vasily Provotorov who is over in Europe, in Estonia, if I'm not mistaken. He's teaching an Unreal 4 class to a bunch of students, and this is an example of teaching a color grading and lighting system using an Unreal 4 engine and assets. So the assets they created to make this Oasis I thought was fantastic. The core idea of the architecture is inspired by Vasily's work, and I wrote him an email and said, Vasily, I really love your work. I saw it on ArtStation. I'm going to give you a link in the description. I want to use some of your pictures in my YouTube videos that I'll draw as inspiration for this cool free Pathfinder Second Edition adventure I'm making for people, one shot. He said, sure. Now this is not commercial, so you can't sell this thing, but I'd love for you to go check out his stuff. I'll give you a link in the description. Let's look through some of this work. So as you can see here, we've got like the long canal idea, right? Where you have the ruins on the left and the ruins on the right, the large blue indigo columns in this oasis. So it's very different from your standard oasis. And you can see what this looks like different times of the day. So we'll include these images in the actual module so you could show these to your players. So if the players arrive in the middle of the day and it's all hot and steamy and kind of like, you know, southern sandstorm action going on, it would kind of look like this. When the players arrive in the middle of the day and it's clear, it would look like this. And then when they arrive at night, it might look like this, right? And when they first approach from a distance, there's no torches illuminated. Everything's very cold and serene with this crescent moon. So these kinds of really beautiful color images will help your players visualize what my chicken scratch map looks like, because I'm going to give you one of my chicken scratch maps, but it'll be shrunk down to fit inside of a PDF, so it won't be to scale for you. So the images will help you get a sense of like what this thing looks like. Now in this picture here, it's really important to note that like what we're seeing in the background is what you would start to see during the song when the song is being played. So the mystical version of the beautiful city and this opulent estate of the most noble person that lives here, that's what you would see. But when you're there initially, you wouldn't see this. So we'll have the pictures placed inside the adventure so you know which ones to show to the players at different points and depending upon what time of day that they're doing the song at, because I don't want to force the players to only be able to play the song at night. It doesn't have to be Ring Race and Frodo on top of Weathertop, if you know what I'm trying to say. So this at night is my personal favorite because at night you've got the really warm glow of the light of the braziers along the steps of the water. And there's nothing weird about stepping in the water, but because of the layout of the floor plan of the actual site where we're going to fight, if you take off to the north or take off to the west or take off to the east, you just loop back around. Like you can't escape. You can't escape the oasis once you've entered it until the conflict's been dealt with. So you can't just like up and leave. Let's look through some more pictures here and then we'll wrap this thing up. So like I said before, on the left-hand side over here, you've got like these two outbuilding structures. The campfire thing will happen over here where the four major columns are in front of the house. Let's take a look at some of this. If you happen to do this during the sandstorm, it would look like this. If you do it at night and the braziers are going, it would look like this. So I think it's very beautiful. It's fantastic fantastic digital artwork. This is one thing that's really great about the Unreal Engine and digital graphics in my industry, is that once you build a location once, it's very easy to change the skybox and the clouds and the lighting and the sound effects to make things feel different. That's something that we need more of in the role-playing game industry, is graphical visuals to go with what we're playing, so we can see things that look really nice. So this is another close-up of where the song will be played, these little blue columns in the colored area here, and this is what it would look like if it's the middle of the day with the sunlight coming down, the sandstorm kind of vibe. And this is my favorite. I just absolutely love this picture. It's brilliant. So this location here is where you would have, up on the stone platform, is where the song stuff would go through. And there's some other shots of some of the other ruins and things like that you could show the players in different times of day and all that kind of stuff. So now, if you want to talk about, if the players start trying during the song playing and the thing going on, they want to run over to the city. It's basically a walled city, and there's just no way to get inside of it. And you can even do things such along the lines of, like, once you get close to it and go to the gate, if you step through the gate, you're stepping out the gate on the other side. There's a show called The Avengers from a long time ago. It was a British kind of a spy show. And there's one episode of The Avengers where you walk down this hallway and open a door, and it leads to another hallway, and you open the next door, and you're back where you started from. That was even done in Myst a little bit as well. So we would do the infinite loop kind of idea here. You can never actually get into the city. You can never actually leave the Oasis until the whole problem's been dealt with. And then you get an idea what it might look like at night as well. So that's our big idea. I really wanted to share this with you right away because it's been over a week since I've made a video, and I don't want it to go that long, but real life stuff's been super busy. Like I said, this crunch going towards Christmas time is really heavy for us. There's a lot of games going on at once, and I got to work on that all the time, so I get to squeeze this stuff in late at night when I get a chance. So that's the big thing behind the Indigo Oasis. Next week, my plan is to get the battle map drawn and then write up maybe like a 5 to 10 to 15 page description that gives you everything you need to know. And I'm going to provide the stat blocks for all the characters for level 1 characters. And if I get time, I'll make like level 3, level 5, level 7 versions of them as well. Or I may give that the opportunity for you to do that, because the core rulebook does give you rules on how to do it. I'm not that great at that kind of balance yet in the game, so I may leave it all at first level 1 and then allow you to switch over to that. So if you haven't heard that Marco Polo song by Lorena McKennitt, go check it out. I'm not going to put it in a video because it could be some kind of wacky licensing flag. I don't want that happening. And that's where we are right now. And the next steps is going to be get this thing kind of written up and drawn up, and I'll put it in a PDF form and I'll share it with people. I may distribute on the Patreon site, but for free. So that may be a great way for me to track how many people have downloaded it. We'll see. We'll figure that out later. Next step is to create the content and get it tested and make sure it runs good and those kinds of things like that. So hope you enjoyed the video. Gives you a sense of what's going on. And I've been reading all the ideas, and I think the one-shot thing is going to be a really fun challenge for me to focus on that. And like I said, I will also do reviews as stuff gets released. But right now, I'm really excited about doing something creative like this, and I hope these kind of ideas are going to be fun for you and your players for a really cool one-shot. All right, cool. That's a lot in 30 minutes, and we'll talk to you later. Take care. See ya.